PopVote has a lot of traffic coming in. So with that being said, continuous network monitoring would help basically monitor the network and also the applications and provide custom analytics. So that way, if any irregular traffic patterns were happening, the company would be able to detect that and take the initiative and preventative measures to mitigate that. Also, cloud computing would also be a great solution to implement just because it provides a lot of flexibility for the company and it scrubs live traffic and cleans out any malicious traffic that is present. And it also helps stop the other parts of the network become congested during an attack, which is great just because PopVote typically receives 62,000 votes, which is a high volume of data. So those are like some of the great solutions that PopVote could implement.
Okay, sounds good. Anything else, or that's pretty much your summary? Okay, all right, very cool. So judges, it's all yours.
Okay, I think I'm gonna kick off. Hi everyone, and congratulations to being at this stage and um, be so far. Again, congratulations, you already got some awards. I have a few questions I'd like to ask you. First of all, my name is Alex Bazai. I'm a Chief Information Security Officer, company Align Communications. We're a managed service provider headquartered here in New York City. What do you think, how do you assess the incident response process in 2012 and 2014 episode or event? And what do you think was missing in 2012 assessment of the event?
I think the biggest thing that was missing, like I said before, was just the individuals working behind the project in 2012. They lacked the resources, they lacked the manpower, and they lacked the systems backing their security. They only had HKU's ITS backing them in terms of their security. I believe it was 2 cloud and 2 physical on their campus. And due to them not having access to platforms such as AWS or uDomain, initially, they really, that's where their first mistake, and that's where they were lacking to begin with, which led them to that extremely high volume of DDoS attacks, which ultimately slowed down their process for an entire day.
Okay.
Just to add on to that too, I think one of the things that like I really noticed and stuck out with me after the 2012 attack was, I mean, they took some good measures to try and prevent future attacks, but one of the shortfalls that I really noticed was with their verification system that they had in place. They maintained their current verification system instead of making changes that would ensure that the persons who are providing their ID numbers, those ID numbers are real. The system would work to verify whether the ID number could be real, but there was no verification of whether that ID number actually is real with the government. And I think that was another shortfall because there were software out there that could create a false ID number that would still get by the system.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Okay, if not, I have another question. So in 2014 episode, when it's happened, company ProVote facing some challenges, and challenges were they trying to approach some MSPs or ISPs to help them, and some solutions were too expensive, not affordable for them. So with this limited budget or with this resource constraint they have, what would you think would be most important thing to implement for them just to mitigate or to prevent the future attacks?
Well, as a result of their the 2014 attacks, the service providers that they already tried to use their services after the 2012 attacks in regards to building up their security and trying to make improvements to the flow of the system and how well the mock votes would be implemented. And obviously the 2014 attacks resulted in 2 of the service providers withdrawing their services after the record number of service requests they had to endure during the attacks. So I think what they did afterwards as a means of recovery, where they enrolled their system into Cloudflare's project Galileo, was the smart move in an affordable sense because it provided them the free DDoS protection they needed to hold off yet another series of cyber attacks that would have made the system even more vulnerable and risk suspension altogether.
Okay, good. They did enroll in Cloudflare, and again, but that looks like the only company they were able to offer them support at this time. So that's kind of lead me to the little bit bigger question. So what do you think the role of cloud providers, specifically public cloud providers, should be in this type of incidents? What should they do or they shouldn't do? Again, the company reached to Google reject them, AWS dropped their services. So what do you think the responsibility of cloud providers should be to the companies like Provote?
I think their responsibility should be to protect these companies that have their usage and do need the services in order to keep themselves going. I don't think it was fair that BotVote was rejected from various different providers simply because of the risks that these service providers would have to face. But that's simply just a responsibility they need to deal with, because simply to keep cybersecurity is increasingly becoming more and more important over as these companies switch to cloud-based services, and as more and more companies use the internet and social media and stuff of that sort. Cyber attacks are never going to go away, and there are always going to be measures that have to be implemented in order to hold them and control them. And I think service providers need to be more willing to hand out their services and to keep these companies from facing increasing attacks that likely won't stop regardless of if they have the support or not.
Okay, thank you. I don't want to take all the time, so please chime in.
So hi, I'm Alicia Cade, and I actually just started working for Google at the CISO office. I have kind of twofold question. First of all, obviously it's dramatic for any company to go through a major cyber attack and deal with the impact. And we've seen, especially recently as well, some companies from the PR perspective handling it really well. And actually, even though they were victims to the attack because of some form of, let's say, negligence, they managed to come out of it actually pretty well rounded from the public opinion perspective, and others completely kind of not doing very well in that area. What do you think makes a difference in how the company handles the PR and the impact on the opinion about that company? So that's one question, and I'll ask you another one once we discuss this one.
Got it. So I think the biggest thing that the public likes to look for in companies where there is a security breach such as this is just an apology. Just explaining, listen, this is what happened, holding themselves accountable for what took place, and explaining the improvements that they're going to be making in the future. No one wants to hear any excuses. People don't like to not like to hear when companies don't hold themselves accountable or they point fingers and blame. So I think the biggest thing that a company can do, a POP can do, is just hold themselves accountable, let the public know this is where we were lacking. These are the weak points that we had in the past. And in the future, these are the things that we're going to be doing in order to protect our services, to protect your information, to protect the just the system, to make sure that it flows and works properly from here on out. So just being open and honest about what they plan on doing in the future, I think that is probably the biggest thing and the most, the strongest thing that they can do to make sure that they are, they have a good reputation with the public.
Thank you. Any additional comments from the team? Okay, so perhaps another angle that I wanted to take. In this case study, we focused on the service provider. What do you think is clearly the lesson for the service purchaser, in this case the government as well? I mean, there were obvious glaring points here. What were deficiencies in the control environment, governance of the company, etc., as you very rightly pointed out in your presentation. And by the way, congratulations on a very succinct and clear presentation, the document itself, and actually how you've clarified, which is why you're here. So well done. But yeah, what do you think if we turn the picture around and let's say you were to be advising the government or the body that purchased the service, what would you be saying to them?
This is actually something that we spoke about in length, and we had come up with an idea where a small little pitch to the government to help with POPO in terms of just making sure that everyone's information was secure, because as we stated earlier, there was no telling if the numbers were fake, if the HKID or HKUID numbers were fake with different softwares being out there. We wanted to reach out to the government to partner with them so that everyone's information was, one, correct, and making sure that no one's information was a duplicate or fake. And that's where we kind of went with the government approach. I don't know if anyone else wants to speak on that as well.
Okay, Alicia, any other questions? Shall we move on to the next?
No, let's move on. I want to make sure everyone else has time to.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Radhika Bajpai. I'm currently Senior Director at PayPal, managing the Technology and Information Security Assurance function. So first of all, congratulations. As the other judges have mentioned, your take on the case study was really amazing. It was really good to see your thoughts and what all you had to share. I think from my end, from a question perspective, I would like to hear your thoughts. So let's say if given a chance to do all of this from scratch and your team is appointed as the CISO team to do this from scratch, how would you go about it? Like what would be some of the things in terms of technical controls, procedural or business controls that you would implement to avoid some of the experiences that the original team had to face?
I'm sorry, I'm speaking. I think the first thing that they should have done was in 2012, the security was way off. There was only like 2 people working then, and then on top of that, I think the only 2 people that working then were actually only students. I think they were just students of the IT manager. And then I believe that all of this like working together, like the DDoS attacks, it like it occurred mostly and it attacked like through the TCP connections and the I think they try to focus on the cloud computing mostly. And I'm sorry, I'm very nervous. I'm not good at public speaking. Like
Don't be nervous. You're doing a great job.
Yeah, exactly. We've all been through this. Chill.
sorry, I was focused on the DDoS attacks too. I think and they should have focused on that API server because they didn't really focus on the client request at first. And I don't know what else to say. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Kai.
Yeah, so I think another thing that Pablo could implement is two-factor authentication, just because when looking at the verification process, there were some shortcomings that they had. And I think with the two-factor authentication process, it's an extra measure that they can take to ensure that the individuals that are using their services are actually not bots or any robots. So with the two-factor authentication, there are passwords that are implemented just to make sure that there's a seamless process and everyone that is using those services are verified. So yeah.
I think another thing that would be beneficial if we were to start from scratch would be to also create a notification of a system if there's a system disturbance. With that, there would be the pop vote would be able to alert the authorities in a timely manner, because that is one of the things that they lacked initially. They didn't initially right away go to the police, or they didn't initially, contact the proper services to handle these high volume issues. So I think that making sure that we would be able to create a system notification, letting us know that there is a security breach, and just acting on it as soon as it happens, and not delaying in our reaction time.
All right, we have 5 minutes left, so maybe one question for Johan and one question for Barry. We're starting to run out of time.
Sure, quick question from me. How did you guys coordinate? How did you ensure as a team that everybody was contributing? And we have a lot of stuff going on right now. We are coming out of COVID, but it's still not quite back to normal. Like, how did you feel you managed that teamwork aspect of this assignment?
So from the beginning, we had established a timeline of what we were going to do. We gave ourselves deadlines. We met every week for about an hour for two times a week, and made sure that we were communicating with each other via group chat, via email. We also communicated with our mentor and our professor, just to make sure that we all held ourselves accountable, to make sure that we all contributed to, this is what we're going to do, this is the topics that we're going to handle, and then go from there. So that's how we attacked this project.
And also I'd like to add, we also use Google Slides and Google Docs as a way for everyone to review what other people were contributing, just to like add our input, or if anyone had any questions or were confused about anything, other people would jump in and clarify or assist them as well. So it was a collaborative effort.
Cool. Thank you.
Excellent. So you guys had mentioned earlier about the contacting law enforcement. What do you think some of the other problems in this kind of a context from a legal side might be? Why might it be difficult for them to have engaged? Why perhaps did they not do it as fast as they should have, and things like that? Any thoughts there?
I guess it's because it's DDoS is really user friendly and it's really high on bandwidth with the computers.
I think it also could have been it's harder to track. So they might have believed that it contacting the police or law enforcement might not have made much of an impact until it got to a point where it was overwhelming. So anything cyber is incredibly that much harder to track than if there was a paper trail. So maybe that could have been one of the leading forces as to why it took them a while to respond.
I think also, as Chris had mentioned before, after the original attack, there were only 2 quote unquote employees working there, and they were basically student volunteers. And they might not have also had the training nor the know-how of understanding, oh, we probably really should be going to the police and getting them involved in the investigation with this. So I think that lack of like training and know-how could also had a big impact in that as well.
All right, sounds good, folks. Well, thank you very much for your time. Good performance today. I will email you regarding the next steps, and we'll keep in touch. And hopefully you will consider participating in this competition next year, and we'll let you we'll let your friends know about this competition. So again, thank you, and I will email you.
Thank you. And again, thank you for everyone for being here and taking the time to sit here and interview us. We greatly appreciate the opportunity again to have been able to be a part of ISACA and be a part of this competition and have the opportunity to meet you all. So
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
thank you. Have a good Mother's Day,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.